Hi guys, and welcome back. Today we are continuing with business literacy and we're looking at learning module 7, which is percentages, ratios, proportions and equations. So first of all, I just want to congratulate everybody that's passed their exams for bookkeeping to trial balance. Thank you for letting me know, and let's hope the rest of your studies will be just as successful. So first of all, we're going to be looking at percentages. Now the moment you see something like, let's say 30%. Now we come across this like when you go shopping, that's more for the ladies. They've got a 30% discount on certain shoes or certain clothing or anything like that. That's just simply a way to say it's 30 out of 100. And where does that come from? Percent is actually from the Italian word, which is per, which means for, and cento, which is 100, for every 100. So that's what it means. If you get a thing 30%, it means 30 out of every 100. So that's something you need to know every time you're going to work with a percentage, to remember that. 30% is saying 30 out of every 100 because it means percent is for every 100. Okay, so we're going to be looking at a few examples of how to calculate that. All right. So I'm just going to read here out of the textbook. It says here, if Tulani says that 30% of his salary is spent on food, he means that out of every 100 rand, 30 rand of that will be spent on food. Okay, so like we said before, percent means out of 100. Okay, so let's look at the relationship between decimals, fractions, and percentages. All right, so it says here, a learner at the local college wrote 3 tests for a subject and received the following marks. So that's 16 out of 25, 68 out of 100, and 48 out of 60. Okay. So first of all, if you need to calculate the percentages of these, you need to get it. What did we say before? A percent means something out of 100. So in other words, you need to get these amounts out of 100. So if you've got a 25, if you multiply 25 by 4, that is 100. So that means then 16 times 4 is 64 out of 100. So in other words, he scored 64% for that specific test. The next test, he got 68 out of 100. So remember, percent means out of 100. So because this one is already out of 100, you don't have to do any calculations. So he got 68%. Now for the other one, you've got 48 out of 60. Now I know that can be a little bit tricky because what do you multiply 60 with to get to 100? But then an easy way to calculate the percentage is simply to multiply it by 100. So this will be 48 times 100 divided by 60. So that'll give you 80%. Okay, so it's 48 times 100 divided by 60. So those are just a few ways from which you can calculate your percentages. First, let's go through it again. If you've got something that it's easily multiplied for to get to 100, like 25, 25 times 4 is 100. So you'll just multiply 16 times 4 as well. Remember what we learned previously? Between your numerator and your denominator, you multiply them by the same number. If you multiply one, you have to multiply the other one by exactly the same number. So once it's out of 100, you actually automatically have got the percentage. And this one we can see is already out of 100, so it's 68%. And then if you've got something like 48 out of 60, the way to calculate that is simply to say 48 times 100 divided by 60. So that's as easy as that in how to calculate percentages. Where did I put mine? Sorry, just forgot where I put my whitey thingy. Okay, so let's look at learning example 7a. It says converting a decimal or fraction to a percentage. So let's see what happens to a decimal. Now, to convert a decimal to a fraction to a percentage is very easy. Like, let's say you've got 0.43. The easiest thing this is actually so easy. You just multiply it by 100. As simple as that. So 0.43 multiplied by 100 gives you 43%. So that's how easy it is to convert your decimal into to a percentage. If you've got 3.75, your decimal, simple. You just multiply it by 100 and that'll give you 375. As simple as that. There's another example there, 0.0281, and you just simply multiply it by 100. Okay. So that's very, very easy. So when you've got a decimal to a percentage, you just simply multiply it by 100 and then you get the percentage. So I'm not going to sit too long on that. That's very easy. Now, rule number 2, they say to convert a simple fraction to a percentage, you multiply the fraction by 100 over 1. So that's easy as well. So it's 1 over 4 times 100 over 1. Now, if you remember from my previous example, I think it's the one we had over here, where you just simply multiply by 100 and then divide. This is the same effect. But of course, 4 goes into 4, 1, if you remember from our previous lesson, and then 25 goes in there. So in other words, 1 out of 4 equals 25%. But you can also do it in a way, 1 times 100 divided by 4. So, and then you'll get to 25%. Okay, so that's to convert a simple fraction to a percentage. So let's look at it again. So it's a quarter times 100 over 1 gives you 25%, or you can use the thing I used earlier, which says you just say 1 multiplied by 100 divided by 4, and that will give you the same answer. All right. So now, okay, let me just quickly see. 0.25, okay, now that's the easiest way to do it. So to convert 5/8 to a percentage, so once again, any fraction, you can do it this way. You can either say 5 times 100 divided by 8, that'll give you 62,5, or you can, remember, you can either cross out, 4 goes into here 2 times and goes into there 25 times, am I right? So 5 times 25 divided by 2 gives you 62.5. So to convert into a fraction, into a percentage, is actually very, very, very easy. All right. Now to convert a mixed fraction to a percentage, it's the same way. So let's go, you've got 3 1/5. So first you've got a mixed fraction, so now you have to convert it into an improper fraction. So 3 times 15 plus 1 is 16 over 5. And then you do it exactly the same way. You just multiply it by 100. So it's 16 times 100 divided by 5. Just want to see, 60, yeah. And that will give you 320%. So to convert 1.5, so 1.5, that's a mixed fraction. First you could convert it into an improper fraction. So that'll be 3 over 2 times 100, and it's exactly the same thing. 3 times 100 divided by 2, and that gives you 150%. So any any fraction, like I said, a decimal is easy, you just multiply it by 100. A fraction is just as easy, you multiply it by 100 over 1 actually. So then it's 16 times 100 divided by 5, or 3 times 100 divided by 2, depending on what your numerator and your denominator is, and then you get to your answer. So that's as simple as that. So I want to see if I've got everything there. Yeah, I'm going to go a bit fast through this because this isn't really difficult, but also just practice it. It will make life a lot easier if you practice it, and you don't have to think too much when you do your exam. Let's go look at rule number 4. To revert to a recurring decimal. Okay, so to convert a third to a percentage. It's exactly the same thing, am I right? So 1 times 100 divided by 3. So it's 100 divided by 3, that is 33.3%. But now what if they ask you that they want that 0.3 in a fraction? So what do? So first of all, you've got the 33. So let's say they don't want to see 33.3. They want to see 33 and whatever fraction is behind it, a third, whatever. Okay, so I just want to do that. You remember what that means? That means that's a recurring decimal. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to convert that 0.3 into a fraction. Now, if you remember from our previous lessons, what did I tell you about how to convert something into how to convert a decimal into a fraction? I always said if you've got one decimal behind that comma thingy, then you put it over 10. Am I right? Okay. If it's 33, you put it over 100. If your decimal is 333, then you put it over 1,000. So you remember that from our first lesson. But now the secret when it comes to recurring decimals, because remember that 3 is actually it's 33.33333 right up into infinity. Okay. So now the secret is when you need to put convert a recurring decimal into a fraction, it's not over 10. This is if it's a full fraction, like it's 33.3 exactly, not 33.33333. But, okay, let me just get back to it. Alright, so in other words, if you've got a decimal there, which is a recurring 3, it's not, you don't put it over 10, you put it over 9. Okay, and you've got, let's say, you've got 34, which is recurring. It won't go, sorry, that's a 4 supposed to be. That won't go 34 over 100, but because it's a recurring decimal, it's 34 over 99. So you get the point, and I think in your last exercise on this module, they've got a few questions on that. Yes, they do. So just that you know how to calculate them. So if it's one decimal, it's over 9. Okay, just remember, it's a recurring decimal, not a whole decimal, a recurring decimal. So it's 3 over 9. So in other words, we've got 33 and 3 over 9%. But remember, we can put this in a simpler form, which is 3 goes into the 1 and into the 3 times. So this will be 33 and a third %. Okay, so that is just something that you need to look at. If we look at the next example, sorry, keep losing this thing. Let's look at the next example quickly. Then it says convert a 6 into 100. Or a 6 into a percentage. So it's 1 times 100 divided by 6. So that'll be 16.6 recurring. Okay. But now, once again, if they might ask you to do it in a fraction, then this is exactly the same. As you can see, there's one decimal point, which is recurring. So that'll be then 6 and 6 over 9, not 10. And then 3 goes into there 2 times, 3 goes into there 3 times. So then it's 16 and 2/3. Okay, so is that easy enough? Alright, so just remember it, when you have a recurring decimal, just over, then it will be, if it's 1 decimal, it will be over 9. If it's 2 decimals, it will be under 19, over 99, etc., etc. Alright. Okay, let's carry on. So converting a percentage into a decimal or a fraction. That's easy. Okay, now let's see. So let's say we've got 16 and 2/3%. So first of all, what do we have here? We have a mixed fraction. So let's convert it into an improper fraction. So 16 times 3 plus 2, that gives you 50 over 3%. All right. But now, we are supposed, now this is converting a percentage into a decimal or a fraction. All right. So this is a percentage. So what is the one thing that we've learned about a percentage? Is remember, a percentage is something that's out of 100. So actually, this means that 50 out of 3 is out of 100. So that's like saying 50 out of 3 divided by 100. Remember when we had 68 over 100? So remember, that is 68%. So you can write that as 68%. Now the same with this. So now we've got 50 over 3 out of 100, or divided by 100, depending on how you want to look at it. So the other way that we can look at 100, that means it's 100. Remember, a whole number can be written like, let's say, a whole number of 7 over 1. That's a whole number. That's actually just 7. But you can write it as 7 over 1. Now that 100 is a whole number, so you can write that 100 as 100 over 1. All right. So now, what are we going to do now? Now remember what we learned in, I think, the first lesson of business literacy is, remember, if you've got a divide line, you need to work with it. Instead of dividing, you multiply with it. Remember, this is like saying 50 over 3 divided by 100 over 1. You remember that we've done it. So now how can we sort this out? It is very, very easy, because now we're going to do what we always do, is we flip it and we multiply it. So it's 50 over 3 multiplied by, remember, now we turn it upside down, 1 over 100. Okay, so now we've got 50 times 1 is 50, 3 times 100 is 300, but then we can take it into a simpler form, which is 50 goes in there 1, and 50 goes in there 6 times, and that then gives you a 6th. All right, now I know that was a lot of work, and it can be very confusing, but let's just calm down, get some water. Let me drink some water. And then let's look at it again. Remember, they want to convert a percentage into a decimal or into a fraction. So we've already got 16 and 2/3%. So we've got a mixed fraction. We're turning it into an improper fraction. Improper fraction, 50 over 3%. And that 50 over 3% is like saying 50 over 3 out of 100, which is the same as saying divided by 100. And that whole number can be written as 100 over 1. So it's 50.3 divided by 100 over 1. and then we just swap it, we multiply it, and then that's how we work with it to get to a 6. But remember, always bring it into its simplest form. Alright, that's one thing of the answers of ICB, the tests and the exams, they always want the simplest form. Alright, okay. Get a feeling I'm going to get a few emails about this one. Oh, by the way, thank you for all the emails as well. I hope I answered all your questions satisfactory. So, well, people are passing the exams, so I must be doing something right. Alright, so let's just see what it says here. Okay, rule number 1 is what we just looked at. Okay, so rule number 2, a percentage is converted into a decimal by moving the decimal point 2 places to the left. Okay, so remember what we said earlier to convert a decimal to a percentage. Let's just look at that again. So it's 0.43 times 100, right? So, and that gives you 43%. So in other words, to convert that back into a decimal, it's 43% divided by 100, and that will give you 0.43. So that is the only difference from, so when you turn a decimal into a percentage, you multiply it by 100, and if you turn a percentage back into a decimal, you simply divide it by 100. Alright, so it's just the reversal thereof. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so let's see, what have we got? Okay, expressing one number as a percentage of another. Okay. So it says here, suppose 4 athletes are competing in a race and one of them has a disability. What percentage of these athletes are disadvantaged? So they say they've got 4 athletes, alright, and one of them has a disability. Now doesn't that look like a fraction to you? So simple, now you have to calculate the percentage of it, so it's 100 divided by 4, so 25% of the people have got a disability. Alright, so therefore to express one number as a percentage of another, form a fraction by multiplying it by, well, you can either say multiplied by 100%, or you can just say 1 times 100 divided by 4. It does exactly the same thing. Okay. Alright, next, learning example 7b. Okay, they give us a bunch of information and they say, so we've got profits and sales for 3 years, and they want to say in which year did the enterprise have the greatest percentage profit compared to sales. Alright, so profit, it says, remember that, you need to read extremely carefully. In which year did the enterprise have the greatest profit compared to sales? So first of all, the thing that you are calculating, because I want to calculate the greatest percentage of profit, that one comes at the top. I'm just going to say at the top. I'm not going to call it numerators and denominators. It's too many words. I'm just going to say it goes on the top. So let's look at the first year. It's 288,000 divided by, and that is what it's being compared to. So the thing that it's compared to goes at the bottom, or the denominator. Okay, 720,000. So they want to know what percentage is it. So once again, multiplied by 100. So 288 divided by 720 equals 40%. Now the next year, it's the same thing. Percentage profit compared to sales. So once again, you take that profit, which is 450,000, divided by 900,000, multiplied by 100, and that gives you 50%. And then the third one, same story, it's 470,000 divided by 1 million multiplied by 100, and then that gives you 47%. So then from here, so the second year, they made the greatest percentage profit. All right, so but remember, when you read a question like this, first see what are they comparing to what. So what the profit is being compared to comes at the bottom, and then the profit will come at the top, and then you just multiply it by 100 and you do your maths like that. All right. Okay, let's look at the scenario 2. It says a worker has painted 20 square meters of an 80 square meter wall. What percentage of the wall has been painted? So same story, 20% out of an 80 of 20 square meters out of 80 square meters, and then you just do your simple maths again, and that gives you 25%. So a quarter of the wall has been painted. Let's quickly look at scenario 3. It says here the percentage of students who passed a particular exam. I know sometimes in ICB that feels like you. The percentage of students who passed a particular exam is 60%. If 520 learners wrote the exam, how many of them passed? So in other words, 60% of 520. All right, now when you see this, it's like a comparison. The word of can be changed with a multiplication sign, and 60 over 100, remember a percentage means it's out of 100, so 60 out of 100 multiplied by 520. And then you just say 60 times 520 divided by 100, and that gives you 312 of them passed. All right, so let's look at that example just quickly again. It says 60% of 520, so it's 60 out of 100. When you see of, or when you write of, can be changed to a multiplication sign, and then you just do your simple maths. So as you can see, this stuff is really not that difficult, but you know, the more you practice, the better you get at it. Okay, so let's carry on. What have we got here? Okay, scenario 4. Oh, this is another one for the ladies. Just a joke. A department store is offering 20% discount on all clothes. All the men cry and all the women say, hurrah. All right, so Morgan is interested in an article of clothing which normally sells for 350 Rand. What is the amount she will have to pay for the article after the 20% discount? All right. So in other words, the item costs 350 Rand, but she's getting a 20% of that. So remember what we said? So that'll be 20 out of 100 multiplied by 350. Do your maths there and to get an answer of 70. So in other words, remember 20% is the discount. So in other words, she's getting 70 Rand discount. So she will pay 350 minus 70, and that gives you 280. But let me tell you another way to look at this. If you want to calculate how much she will be getting, or how much she will be paying for the outfit, is, remember, if she gets 20% discount, she's only paying 80% of the price. Am I right? So in other words, she's only paying 80% of 350, and that also gives you 280 Rand. So you can do it in one of two ways. You can first calculate the discount and then just subtract that from the total, or you can say, okay, she's getting 20% discount, so she's only paying 80% of the price, and you will get to the same answer. Alright, are we winning today? I hope so. Okay, scenario number 5. The standard gross profit of an enterprise is 33 1/3% of the enterprise's sales. If the sales of the enterprise amounts to 99,000 Rand, what is the amount of the enterprise's gross profit? All right. So let's see. So that'll be 33 1/3%. 33 1/3% of 99,000 Rand. Am I right? They say the gross profit is 33 1/3. If the sales of the enterprise is 99,000, what is the amount of the enterprise's gross profit? Okay, so first let's look at what we've got. So they want 33 1/3% of 99,000. So let's see, now we've got a mixed fraction, so let's convert that into an improper fraction first. So 33 times 3, so that is 100 over 3. 33 times 3 plus 1 is 100 over 3. But let's see if we can't make that a little bit easier, because remember, we need to get rid of that percentage sign. So remember what we said, so that is then divided by 100 over 1. Remember, it's like saying 100 over 3 divided by 100. So yeah, so now we're just going to multiply it. So that'll be 100 over 3 multiplied by 1 over 100. Am I right? So that'll be 100 over 300. And then to make it simpler, you can say 100 goes into the 1 and then 3 times, so it's a third. So instead of having this massive calculation with 33 1/3% of 99,000, we can just simply say it's a third of 99,000. Okay, so remember everything that we do prior to this will help you to get your answers, okay? So it's 99,000 divided by 3. So in other words, 33 1/3% of that gives you 33,000 Rand. All right, so let's look at this again. So we've got 33 1/3% of 99,000. So then we've got, so let's get away from the so remember, we need to put that over 100 because it's a percentage, and then you do your calculation, and then you get to a third, but it's exactly like we've done some of our previous calculations, so it's just an easy way of saying do a third of 99,000. You can obviously also do it with a 33 1/3%, but if you can make it smaller, it just makes life a little bit easier. All right, great. Great, so let's see now. Scenario, okay, we've just done scenario 5. Oh, excuse me. Okay, scenario 6 is a percentage change. Now, when we started business literacy, remember I told you that there's going to be a part where there's going to be a lot of formulas which you have to learn. Now, this is the first formula you will need to learn. The best way to do is just write down all the formulas that you need to learn and memorize them. that you will have them for the exams. In the exams, they're not going to give you all the formulas. They sometimes do give you formulas, but most of the time, you need to know the formulas off by heart. All right. So they want to look now in scenario 6. They want to look at your percentage change. They're saying the following information is available for an enterprise. Okay. Sales for 1 year was, well, for the first year was 900, and then sales for the year thereafter was 1.05, well, 1050000. So they want to know the percentage increase in sales. How can you calculate the percentage increase from the 1 year to the other? Okay. So first of all, they give us the 1 year, it's 900,000. And then the second year, it's 1050, waka waka waka. All right. Okay, so first of all, let's calculate the change that took place. So that'll be 1050,000 minus 900,000, and that gives you 150,000. So they had 150,000 rand more in the second year than in the first. But now, so in order to calculate the percentage increase, you use the formula like they give it to you. So it's your change, which is that amount, 150,000, divided by your original, multiply by 100. Okay. So the change is what we calculated here. So change is 150,000 divided by the original. The original is always the one that you started with. Okay. So that because what are you comparing it to? You're comparing the second year to the first, the second one to the first one. Okay, so that's the one that you are comparing it to. So that'll be 900,000, and that's times 100. Okay, so when you do that calculation, you will get to 16.67%. All right. So first of all, learn. I lost my watch. Sorry, just want to keep track of time. All right. All right, so first, when you get this thing, first you calculate the change, how much more or how much less they made. Then you take the change divided by the original. So you are comparing the second. Remember, it will always be the first year because you're comparing the second year to the first year, multiplied by 100. All right. And then you do your calculation. Oh, and that is that for, well, most of the percentages. Let's see. Okay. Okay. I hope I did not go through this too fast. But luckily you can pause the video and just recheck it. But of course, you can still send me emails if you've got any questions or anything that you are battling with. But remember, please listen, please practice this stuff. Just practice until you've mastered it. All right. Okay. I'm very thirsty today. Now we're going to look at working with ratios. So a ratio is a way of expressing a relationship between two or more numbers, which enables us to make a comparison between them. Okay, so now they give you the example. Suppose a bowl holds 8 slices of bread, 3 white and 5 brown. And they ask, what is the ratio between the number of white slices and the number of brown slices? That's very simple. You can say, so the ratio will be 3 to 5. So in other words, for every 3 slices of white bread, there's 5 slices of brown bread. Yeah, 3 white, 5 brown, yes. So that will be the ratio. But let's say you've got a big factory which you are working off, and it says here in a bread factory, you might find thousands of units of sliced bread. Suppose there are 2,400 slices of white bread and 3,600 slices of brown bread. Okay, so you just simply take that, and now you have to convert it into a simpler form, because you can't, well, you can say for every 2,400 slices of white bread, there's 3,600 slices of brown bread, but that's just, the amount is too big. So you have to also bring it down into a simpler form. So let's see how we can do that. So first of all, we can divide both of them by 100. So in other words, we can say, for every 24 slices of white bread, there's 36 slices of brown bread. But we can make that even smaller. So let's say we can divide both of them by 2, so that'll be 12 and 18. Yeah, that's also good. And then we can divide both of them by 2 again, so that'll be 6. No, wait. Yeah, 6 and 9. Alright, so, and now that we can divide both of them, we can divide by 3. And so in other words, something that started with 2,400 slices of white bread and 3,600 is the same as saying for every 2 slices of white bread, there's 3 slices of brown bread. Now that is a little bit easier to say than that. Alright, so how can we write it? So we can write 2,400 to 3,600 is equivalent to 3 little stripes to 2 out of 3. Alright. Okay. So when you get your big amounts, you just bring it down into its simplest form, and just like working with a fraction, you need to divide both of them by the same number. So first we divided by 100, then we divided it by 2, then we divided by 3, both of them, and then we got to our final answer. Okay, so let's have a look at the next example quickly. Okay, so far we have only compared 2 quantities, but we can compare any number of quantities by means of a ratio. So let's see. So it says, okay, I think it will be better if I just wipe this quickly. Okay, so it says 200 kilograms of a certain concrete mix is made by mixing 40 kilograms cement, 40 kilograms of sand, and 120 kilograms gravel. So in other words, it's 40, 40, 120. So luckily, what can go into that? 40 can go into all of them, because 40 goes in there. 1, 1, 3. So in other words, it's 1 measurement cement, 1 measurement sand, and 3 measurements of gravel. Okay, so yeah, it's not really that difficult, but just to write it into the comparison that you actually require. Okay, let's carry on. Ratios and fractions. Oh man, just when I thought we were done with fractions, here it pops up again. So ratios can also be expressed as a fraction. For example, if an amount of money is divided between Mona and Leratu in the ratio of 1 to 3. So that will be Mona, and that will be Leratu. Is it Leratu or Relatu? Leratu, sorry. So Mona and Leratu, so they get money in a pot. Mona gets 1 pot and she gets 3 pots. Okay, so now to write this into a fraction is we need first to calculate how many parts are there in total. So if we see there's 1 pot plus 3 parts, that gives you 4 parts. So in other words, Mona will be getting 1 out of 4 parts because there's a total, and Leratu will be getting 3 out of 4 parts. So the ratio 1 to 3 can also be written as a fraction. She will get a quarter and she will get 3/4. All right, so let's carry on. So similarly, suppose 3 children are to share an inheritance of 3 to 2 to 1. So the one child will get 3 portions, second child 2, and the third child, I don't know what the third child did, but she only gets 1. So now, once again, if you need to calculate the ratio, first you need to calculate how many total portions are there. So it's 3 plus 2 is 5, so that'll be 6 portions. So number 1 will get 3 out of 6 portions. That'll be 2 out of 6 portions, and she'll get 1 out of 6 portions. Okay. So, and then you can also write it, you can bring this into a simpler form. 3 goes into 3 ones, into the 2. So in other words, half of the portion will be going to the first one. 2 goes into the 1. A third will go to the second one, and a sixth will go to the third one. Okay. So first of all, so when you have to convert something like this, if you've got a ratio and you have to convert it into a fraction, you first see how many total parts there are, and then you just simply write 1 out of 4 belongs to that person, and 3 out of 4 to that one. And even if you've got a ratio that's got 3 or more in, you first calculate the total number of portions and divide it like that, and then bring it into its simplest form. All right, I hope everybody's happy with that. Okay, so that's ratios. Sharing in accordance with the ratio. It says in business, we often encounter instances where ratios are used to share wealth, cost, assets, or debts. I don't think anybody wants to share debt. In a partnership, for instance, the partners must decide how they will divide the profits. And that's referred to as the sharing. Okay, so consider the following scenarios. Profits are shared between 3 partners, X, Y, and Z. Okay. The total profits are 175, 160. 175, 160. So how much does each partner get? I just want to check something. It says the profits are shared between X, Y, and Z for the ratios 4, 3, 1. Okay, I missed that part almost. So profits are shared between the 3 partners in a ratio of 4 to 3 to 1, and the total is 175, 160. So now once again we do exactly the same. We first need to calculate how many portions are there. So 4 plus 3 plus 1 is 8. So there's 8 portions. So X will get 4 out of 8 portions. Y will get 3 out of 8 portions, and Z will get 1. 1 out of 8 portions. Okay, so this one, now let's see if we can bring it into a simpler form. 4 out of 8, yes, 4 goes into the 1s, into the... So in other words, X gets half of the portions. 3 to 8 you can't make simpler, and 8 you cannot. So what do you do? So now you just write 1 over 2 times 175, 160. 3 over 8 times 175, 160. And then 1 over 8 times 175, 160. And now you just simply calculate it. So it's 1 times 175, 160 divided by 2. Gives you 87580. 3 times 175, 160 times 8 gives you 65685. And then the last one will be 21895. And so we calculated then how that profit will be split. So if you want to check yourself out, you can simply add those up. If you add that up, you will get to 175,160. Okay, so first you have your ratio, then you just bring the total, you work out the fraction, you bring that into a fraction, and then you multiply that fraction with the total of money that's being divided, and then you calculate it, and to check if you are correct, just add your 3 answers up to see if you get to that same total. All right. I sometimes wish this was a live class, because I remember I always just enjoy it when people, as I explain, that people can ask me questions immediately instead of just having to wait for sending an email. I remember when I was a lecturer at Damlin in Centurion, that was always get so many questions with regards to these things. So I hope you guys do understand it, but if you don't, please send me an email and I'll try and answer it as quickly as possible. All right. Okay. Let's look at scenario 2. It says, this is a bit of a tricky one, and there goes my, got it. Profits are shared between 3 partners, A, B, and C, in such a way that A receives twice as much as B, who receives 3 times as much as C. So if the total profits are 5,520, what will each partner receive? Now that is a bit of a tricky one, all right? So let's read it again. Profits are shared between 3 partners, A, B, and C, in such a way that A receives twice as much as B, who receives 3 times as much as C. So the simple thing to do is first to calculate who gets the least amount. Okay, so it says that A receives twice as much as B, who receives 3 times as much as C. So in other words, I think we can agree that poor number C, he gets the least amount. So let's make C 1. All right. So it says A, B, and C in such a way. Okay, A receives twice as much as B, who receives 2 times as much as C. So B receives, so B gets 3 times C's part. Am I right? Because it says here, B receives 3 times as much as C. So that'll be 3. And it says A receives twice as much as B. So if he gets 3, that means he gets 6. Okay. So the first thing when you get a question like that, first just calculate your ratio. I know it can be tricky, but the best way to do it is first calculate who gets the least, make that 1, and then you can just, from the wording, like it says, A receives B receives 3 times as much as C, and A receives twice as much as B. So now we've got it again. So 6 plus 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. So that'll be 6 over 10, 3 over 10, and 1 over 10. You just simply calculate that. So let's make it simpler. So that'll be 3 over 5. That one can't be simpler. That one can't be simpler. Okay, so let's see what is the total. 55, 200. Okay, yeah, so A will be 3 over 5 times 55, 200. B will be 3 over 10 times 55, 200, and that one will be 1 over 10 times 55, 200, and then when you do the calculation, you'll see that partner A gets 33,120, B gets 16560, and A gets 5520. And then you can add them up, and that should give you that total again. All right. So like I said, the tricky part of this is first just to get your ratio right. But once you have that, you can basically do the rest. Okay. Okay, next one. Phew. Doesn't feel like it ever ends. Okay, it says here the first two scenarios so far have involved dividing a sum of money according to a ratio. Sometimes we know the value of one part of a ratio, but we have to calculate the value of the other part. Okay, now it just gets a little bit more interesting. A business employs two salesmen, Ashton and Sarah. The ratios of sales of Ashton to Sarah is 5 to 4. Okay. If Ashton sold 330,000, how much did Sarah sell? Okay. So now, for instance, to do this is actually very, very easy. And if you can still remember from bookkeeping to trial balance, the magic block type thing, this works almost exactly the same way. So to calculate what 4 parts are, it's simple. So, how do you do it? So what do we know? We've got two dudes, one dude and one dudette, Ashton and Sarah. They've got a ratio 5 to 4. Ashton sold 330,000. So how much did Sarah do? So it's simple. So first of all, you say 330,000 divided by 5 multiplied by 4. As simple as that, and it always works out. So you first work with what you have. You've got a full column there, which is you need a total and you need the ratio number. So it's 300, you take the amount divided by the ratio, multiply that by the new ratio, or the ratio that you require. So then, how much is that? So that'll be 330,000 divided by 5, multiplied by 4, and that will give you 264,123. Okay. So the total sales then will be 330,000 plus that. Okay. Now the way they've done it, now that is the way I do it. Just remember, if you do it like that, please show your works. So just show them you took 330,000 divided by 5 multiplied by 4. Okay. And then how you get to your answer. Okay. So I hope that'll be, just want to see what else, if they did something funnier. Not quite. Alright, so that's just an easy way to do it, but just show your works as well. You can write it like this in the form of the ratio, but just remember 330,000 divided by 5 multiplied by 4 gives you that total. But before you write it there, show how you do it. Okay, just show how you do it. Alright. Great. Okay, I think that's that. All right, so we've done that. Let's see what's next. Now we're getting to proportions. Let's see, how are we doing now? Are we doing... Oh, I see there's more formulas on their way. Okay, we're almost done, I hope. Okay, proportions. Many business calculations are based on simple proportions. For example, if the cost of 2 tons of material is that amount, what will 5 tons be? Okay. Now, when you've got 2 variables and you need to calculate a different variable, I think I did share this formula with you previously. But if they say, for instance, 2 tons of material costs you 5527.5. Then how much will, so this is tons and this is price. So it says here, so it says, they give you, they say 2 tons of material cost you that. How much will 5 tons cost? So that'll be 5 tons will cost you X. Okay, so now we need to get the X on the top. So I like to get the X on the left hand side, and we're just going to turn it around because I like the X must be on the top. So it's X divided by 552750 equals 5/2. Okay, so in other words, remember we divided on this side, so if we bring it over, we're going to multiply it. So X equals 5/2 multiplied by 552750. So 5 tons will cost you 13818.75. Okay. So that's how you can calculate it. Another way to do it as well is if they say 2 tons cost, how much again? 552750. You can always just calculate what 1 ton will cost you. So that'll be, if 2 tons cost you 5527.5, you can say 5527 divided by 2, and that will give you the price of 1 ton, and then you simply multiply that by 5 to get to your total. So either way the answer will be correct. I like to use that formula, but actually the way you do it here is exactly the same as what you would have done it if you first calculated. This is just a basic shortcut to get to that calculation. All right. Okay, so let's see what's next. And now we're going to be looking at equations. I see practice exercise 7F has got a few nice, something that'll keep you busy for a while. Awesome. Okay. Let's see, is that everything? Yeah. Now let's look at equations. So it says an equation is a statement indicating the mathematical equality of 2 expressions. So the following example are examples of equations. So 21 minus 12 equals 9. X plus 12 equals 17. Okay. So let's look at that one for a moment, just quickly. You have X plus 12 equals 17. They want you to calculate what is X. So what plus 12 will give you 17, and obviously the answer to that is 5. So X equals 5. But now in a moment we're going to look at how we calculate these things. Alright, so to solve an equation means to find the variable. That's what I just said. The X is the variable, and then how to find it. Okay, so we're going to be looking at methods of solving problems. Now, they've got a lot of stuff in this textbook, and I need to say that sometimes it is very, very, very confusing. So I'm going to try and just show you an easier way of how to do this. Let me just get rid of this. Okay. Okay, because they've got different methods of adding that on both sides, dividing that on both sides, and you know, that is actually just very, very confusing. So if we've got a thing, let's look at rule number 1. It says x minus 3 equals 6. Okay. Now when you've got an x or a variable, like, let's call it a variable, you always need to get your variables on one side of the equation. Remember, that is the center of the equation. All right. So in order to get your x alone on one side, you need to get rid of that minus 3. So how do you do it? Is we need to bring the minus 3 over to the right side. Okay. But now you need to remember one thing. This, I always call it my rainbow. Sorry, I just call it my rainbow, just for fun of it. I used to do it when I did I used to call it like that when I did my grade 7, I gave my grade 7 maths. They seem to understand the rainbow thing. Alright, so over the rainbow. So when you bring something over the rainbow, this changes into its opposite. Now remember, plus and minus are opposites. Division and multiplication are opposites, and multiplication and divisions are opposites. So when you bring it over, this sign becomes the opposite of what it was. It's like going through let's see that as a portal. I know I've been watching the Star Trek series lately, and obviously when it goes through the portal, everything changes on the other side. So let's say we've got the x, we've got the 6, and now we're bringing it over. We take it through the portal, and then that minus becomes a plus 3. Okay, so x then equals 6 plus 3 is 9. So that's just a bit of an easier way than the way they explain it, because they say then you have to add 3 on both sides. It works out the same way, but I think this is just a little bit easier understandable. Okay, so you need to get your x or your variable on one side, and once you go through the portal, remember the 6 still stays the first amount. The plus changes into the subtraction sign changes into a positive, so it turns into its opposite on that side. Okay, but we will be looking at a few more examples. Don't worry about that. Okay. So let's look at the next example. So let's say x, okay, yeah, sorry, and minus plus, yeah. So let's say we've got x plus 9 equals 14. Now the same thing. Now we need to get that x on one side. So we need to take that plus 9 through the portal to the other side. So x then will equal 14. And what did we say happens once we go to the other side? This becomes its opposite, which is a negative, minus 9. So then x, 14 minus 9 equals 5. All right. I'm having fun with this. I love these things. Let's look at the other one. X divided by 5 equals 4. All right, x divided by 5. So remember, what did we say? We need to get the x alone on one side. So that will equal then, now remember, this is a division. So a division becomes the opposite, which is a multiplication. So that will be 4 times 5. Ta-da! And that gives you 20. So you just bring it through, bring it over the rainbow or through the portal, whichever way you like to look at it. But just remember then it changes into its opposite. So here it's x divided. So if you divide it on that side, you have to multiply it on the other side. If you add it, you have to subtract it. If it's subtracted on this side, you have to add it on that side. If you divide it on that side, you have to multiply it on the other side. Okay. So let's look at the next one. Then we've got 7x. Remember, that's like saying 7 multiplied by x equals 63. So that's like saying 7 multiplied by x equals 63. So once again, we need to get the x alone. So if you multiply something on the other side, you divide it. When it comes through the portal or over the rainbow, you divide it by 7. So 63 divided by 7 equals 9. All right. Okay, so let's look at it. So once again, so just bringing it over and then multiplying or dividing or adding or subtracting, but just as long as it's on one side, it changes once it goes through the portal thingamajiggy. All right. When an equation contains brackets, we use the distributive law to remove the brackets before solving. Okie dokie. So let's write that one down. So it's 4 and it's 5x. Okay, that's an x. How can I write that? Let's write it like that. It looks like somebody's butt, but it's okay. 5x minus 4 equals 24. So when you get a bracket like that, you obviously first need to calculate it. So, but this is like saying this is 4 times 5x and 4 times 4. All right. So now we have to multiply 4 times that, and we have to multiply 4 times that. That's to get rid of the brackets. Okay, so 4 times 5x minus 4 times 4 equals 24. Okay, so you just multiply the two numbers with each other. All right, so 4 times 5 is 20. So 20x minus 4 times 4 is 16 equals 24. Okay. So now once again, now that we've gotten rid of that bracket, so let's just explain again what happens. When you've got a number and it's multiplied by a bracket, that number must be multiplied with all of them. If it's attached to a variable, it's fine. It's just simply saying 4 times 5. So then it's 20 times the variable. So 4 times 5 and then 4 times 4. All right. Now we can just carry on as normal. We need to get the x alone. So we've got 20x equals 24. Now remember, we're bringing this over. So the minus becomes a plus equals 16. So 20x equals 40. Now once again, the x is not alone yet. So this is like saying 20 multiplied by x. So if we bring it over, it's multiplied on this side. So once you bring it over, you divide. So then x equals 2. Okay. I know this is quite a lot of work, but please just go and just keep practicing them. All right. Okay, let's carry on. All right, so I've explained a few of them. We're going to be doing, just want to see how far we are. Okay, just want to check the time. Okay, we've been busy for about 40 minutes now. Actually, it takes quite a lot just to talk like this the whole time. Okay, well, I'm just going to continue. I think we're doing quite okay with time at the moment. Luckily, you can, if you need to take a break, you can just pause and carry on later. Okay, so let's look at learning example 7D. It is 3x minus 4 equals 14. Okay, 3x minus 4. Once again, you need to get your variable, your x, alone on one side. So 3x, so we move the 4 that side. So that'll become 14. The minus becomes a plus 4. So 3x equals 14 times 4 is 18. Now x, this is like saying 3 times x, so we bring it over. So that'll be 18 divided by 3. And the answer there is 6. Okay, so see how easy it is now, just to bring it over and then you just change it. So see here we've got plus and minus and multiplication all in one. Okay. So let's quickly look at the other one. So 1 over divided by 2y minus 3 equals 8. Okay. That looks complicated. We need to get the y on one side. So first, let's just take baby steps. So 1 over 2y equals 8 plus 3. So 1 over 2y equals 11. Okay. But now remember, 11 is a whole number, and what did we say earlier? How can you write a whole number? You can write it, okay, wait, now I can't. You can write it 11 over 1. Am I right? So now we need to get the y on the top, because you can't transfer that amount to that amount. So 2y over 1 equals 1 over 11. Am I right? Okay. So now 2y over 1 is just exactly that, because if you divide it by 1, you have to multiply it by 1. So that's exactly going to stay 1 over 11. So 2y is basically 1 over 11. Now remember, this is 2 multiplied by y, so y is equal 1 over 11 divided by 2. Okay, so that'll be 2 over 1. Okay, so now let's just do the whole multiplication thing. So y then equals 1 over 11. Because remember, that's dividing, so now we have to top and turn it. If we multiply it, to change it into a multiplication, it's 1 over 2. So then 1 times 1 is 1, 11 times 2 is 22. So y equals 1 over 22. Alright, I know when you do these things, you just have to keep your head straight and just take baby steps at a time. So 1 over 2y minus 3 equals 8. So then we bring the 3 over number 1. So that'll be then 11. But now we cannot bring the 1 over from the top. So we need to change it. So 1 over 2y then is 11 over 1, because it's a whole number and you can write it as that. So we need to bring the y to the top. So we just turn it around and then just do the calculation from there. All right. Okay, I hope you understood that one. I know this one can be quite a little bit difficult, but just take baby steps and just keep thinking, what would Carlo do? All right. Sorry, I just need to make that mark there. Okay. So, problem number 3. Now we're going to be working a little bit with fractions again. A plus 4 over 7 equals 2 over 3. Okay. I know this looks a little bit daunting, but it's not that bad. We just need to get the variable, which will be a on the one side. So we need to bring the 4.7 over. So a equals 2 over 3. The plus becomes a minus 4 over 7. Okay, So now we are going back to the rules that we learned right at the beginning, where we say what's the rules when you add and subtract fractions. So when you add and subtract fractions, you need to find the lowest common denominator. Yeah, so you're never going to run away from that stuff. So we've got 3 and we've got 7. So the lowest common denominator, we can just say 21. 21. 21. Okay, so 3 times 7 is 21. 2 times 7 is 14. 7 times 3 is 21. 4 times 3 is 12. So because we've got the same denominator, we can just do the calculation. So 14 minus 12, that'll be 2 over 21. Okay, so if it's a fraction, it doesn't matter, it works exactly the same way, just that you will have to remember the different rules, like if you multiply or divide fractions, or if it's adding and subtracting, where you need to know you have to find the lowest common denominator. All right. Then problem number 4. Then we've got 10c plus 7 equals 3c plus 35. Okay, well now we've got two variables on both sides. We've got the 10c on this side and the 3c on this side. So the same rule applies now. Remember, when we bring something over to that side, and if we bring something over to the other side. So either way, the same rule applies. So first of all, we need to bring the 3c because we want to get all the c's on one side, right? So in other words, 10c, now because that's a plus 3c, ta-da, that just becomes a minus. If that was a minus 3, it would have become a plus. Plus 35, what am I doing? Okay, 35, and now the 7 must come over to that side, and it's a plus, so that'll become a minus. So 10 minus 3 is a 7c equals 35. Yeah, remember, if it's the same variable, you can just add and subtract them. So 10c minus 3c is like saying 10 minus 3, because it's the same variable. Obviously, if it's a different variable, it will have different rules. But I don't think you guys, if I remember correctly, you guys don't do different variables. You only stick to one variable in this course. All right, so 35 minus 7 is 28. Great. So now we just calculate. So c, because it's multiplication, 7 times c equals, so we bring it over. So that's 28 divided by 7, and that gives you 4. See? That's easy enough. But just practice. Alright, so we did that one. Let's look at problem number 5. So it's 8 times 2a plus 4 equals 160. Okay, so now remember what we did in the first one. Now we need to multiply the 8 with that one and the 8 with that one because there's a bracket. So 8 times 2 is 16a plus 8 times 4. Oh, what's 8 times 4 now? I can't remember. I think it's 32. Yeah. Well, I hope I'm right. So plus 32 equals 160. Okay, so 16a plus 32 equals 160. And now when we got rid of the bracket, now we can just simply continue. So 16a equals 160, the plus becomes a minus. So 16a equals 128. So the a becomes, so it's 128 because it's multiplied on that side, we divide it on that side. It's 128 divided by 16, and that gives you 8. Okay. And then last but not least, problem 6. Now they're working with decimals. So it's 133.57 equals 16.49x. Okay, there's nothing funny about that. But personal opinion, I just like to get the x on the other side. So let's just 16.49x equals 13357. I'm just swapping it just around, just to get the x on the left hand side. So this is just simply like 16.49 multiplied by x. So x then will be 133.57 divided by 16.49, because we're bringing it over, and answer is 8.1. Oh, that's so easy. Okie dokie, now we're looking at formulas. Now please remember what I said about the formulas. You need to memorize and you need to know your formulas. Okay, so that when you get into a test or an exam, they don't catch you by surprise. They don't always give you the formula. In fact, 99% of the time they don't give you a formula. You need to either know the formulas or you need to calculate the formula yourself. Alright. Now one formula that you guys always know is your profit is your sales minus your expenses, and that we use all the time. But now an example of a formula is D equals S times T. Now please remember, you need to know these formulas. So D represents your distance traveled, S is your speed, and T is your time taken. Okay, so distance is speed times time. Alright, but now if they ask you to calculate the speed, you need to be able to change the subject. So then speed, let's just write it like this. So let's equals D. So then speed will be, because it's a multiplication, you bring it over, it's distance divided by time. Okay, and then your time, if you have to calculate time, time will be, let's see, time will be your distance divided by speed. Okay, so if a car traveled 363 kilometers in 3 hours, what was the speed of the car? So speed is your distance divided by time. So it's 363 divided by 3 hours. So he was driving about 121 kilometers per hour. Alright, so that's just an example. So learn your formula, but also know how to change. If they ask you distance, if they ask you speed, if they ask you time, that you know which formula to use. So then they give you the information, you just simply take that information, put it into your formula and do the calculation. Alright. Okay, let me see now. Okay, we are almost done. Okay, so let's see. The following diagram represents a rectangle. So let's draw a beautiful rectangle. It's not that beautiful. So that contains of length and width. So if they ask you to calculate the parameter, now remember the parameter is that area. The parameter is around it. So let's say your parameter equals, now if you have to say, that will be length, length, width, width. So it's length plus width plus width. Because there's two lengths and there's two widths. But the easier way to write it is 2 times length plus width. Okay. Or you can write it as 2L plus 2W. So 2 times length, because remember there's two sides. So that is a formula you will have to use if you need to calculate the parameter. Now if they ask you to calculate the area, now the area is that part. of the rectangle is the inside. So the area of a rectangle is length times width, just once. So the parameter is you have to calculate the outside of the rectangle. The area is you calculate the inside of the rectangle. So let's quickly look at an example. They say if the length of a rectangle is 60 centimeters and the width is 20 centimeters, and they ask you calculate the parameter. So let's do the parameter. Okay, so we've got parameter equals 2 times length plus width. So that'll be 2 times 60 plus 20. So remember, in any situation, your rules of maths still apply. So we do the brackets first. So that'll be 2 times 80 equals 160 centimeters. Why is it centimeters? And please don't forget, you actually get a mark for writing that. But now don't get confused between the area and the parameter. So I'm gonna leave that up there, because the next question they ask what is the area. So the area, sorry, let me get out of the way, is length times width. So that'll be 60 times 20. So that's 60 times 20. So that'll be 1,200 centimeter squared, or cubic centimeters. All right. Now please note, when you do the parameter, you just simply write centimeters. But when you do the area, you need to write its centimeters, not squared. It's called the, now my words are failing me. I think it's cubic your cubic centimeters, if I remember correctly, sorry. All right, but please remember, because you multiply length times the width, so that's 2 items, you write centimeters squared. All right, don't forget that. If you have to do, if it's one of the other formulas we'll be talking about later is length times width times height. That's cubic. That'll be centimeters 3, because you multiply it with 3 things. But we'll be getting to that one a bit later. But just remember, when you do the area of an object, don't forget that part. All right. Please don't forget that part. Yeah, 1,200 square centimeters. Square centimeters, and then if it's 3, it's cubic centimeters, but that'll be the 3. All right. But once again, I say you need to know these formulas and you need to practice them. Okay. Scenario 3. A small business pays their sales representative 400 Rand per week plus 40 Rand for each item the person sells in a week. The following formula can be constructed to calculate his income. So his income is, he's got a standard rate of 400 Rand per week plus he gets 40 Rand for every item he sells. We'll just make that an N, or you can make it an X, or whatever. So I is his income plus 400 Rand. So they can actually ask you as well, write a formula for the following problem. And then you need to calculate it. All right. So income is 400 plus 40 times whatever the person sells. You can make that an X, an N, a P, whatever you want to do, but then use that to calculate the formula. All right. So I just want to share something with you with practice exercise 7H. If you look at the last example of the last part of the first question, where it says you've got length 2 centimeter and width 55 millimeters. please remember that those two measuring points must be the same. So you must either convert the 2 centimeters into millimeters or the 55 millimeters into centimeters. All right, they must always be the same. Okay, so please keep your eye out for that. All right, now let's go look at change the subject. Almost done. Let's change the subject, which is very simple. So let's say we've got a formula, V equals IR. All right. So V is your voltage, I is your electrical current, and R is your resistance. Now this is exactly as what I explained earlier, and it works exactly the same when if you need to bring something over. So if you need to calculate R, you will bring the I over, so that's like multiplication. You bring it over, then you divide it, equals R. All right. And I, if you have to calculate I, that will bring the R over V divided by R. Okay, so that's just how you change the subject, and they can do that quite a lot. If you look at learning example 7F, they give you QJ equals QSU. And that works exactly the same. So let me quickly do that. Let's do that quickly. They say J equals QSU. Am I right? Yeah, J equals QSU. So if you need to find Q, remember that's like saying Q times S times U. So we bring it over, equals Q. The same with S will be J divided by QU, and U will be J divided by QS. Okay, so that's just the way that when you bring it over, it's the same rules that I've applied. If you multiply it on the one side, you just divide it on the other side. So that's just something you need to practice as well. If you look at scenario 2, they say W equals V plus BU, and they want you to change the subject to V. So it's simple. So V, you need to get rid of that. So it's a plus, you bring it over, so W minus BU equals V. All right, you just bring it over the rainbow, and there you go. You're good to go. Let's quickly look at scenario 3. Okay, they say determine the value of S in the formula T equals B 1 minus S, and they say T is 20 and B, okay, that's T equals 20 and B equals 8. Okay, so there's one of two ways you can do this thing. But obviously they want you to first change the formula to S. You're going to have to do it. If that's not quite what they require, then you can just simply fill in T as 20 and B as 8, and then do your calculations. Okay. So first of all, I'm gonna do it the long way and just get S, just change the subject to S. All right. So first of all, we need to get the S alone on one side. So we've got T. See, this is dividing, so we multiply it by 1 minus S. That equals B. So T times 1 is T minus T times S is TS, and that equals B. Okay, so now we have to get rid of the T, so minus TS equals B minus T. So S then will be B minus T over minus T. Okay, I hope you followed that, but it's the same rules as what we did here, just applying it and working out. So now that we've got it, so S then equals B is 8 minus 20 divided by minus 20. So 8 minus 12 is minus 12 divided by minus 20. Okay, but now remember the first lessons we did when we did the first lessons of business literacy is a minus divided by a minus is a positive answer, so that'll be 12 divided by 20. And now you just bring it into its simplest form, so 12 divided by 4 is 3, 20 divided by 4 is 5. So your answer is 3.5, and then if you have to change it into a decimal, that'll be 0.6. Just punch that into your calculator. Okay. I hope you guys are following me. And now I think the last one is determine the expenses of a business. Now remember, these formulas you need to learn, please. So profit, what are we calculating? Determine the expenses of a business if the profit for a year is 300,000 and the revenue is 840. So you've got your profit equals your revenue minus your expenses. Am I right? So now if you change that around, your expenses will be your profit minus where's my pen? Okay. Ooh, sorry. So your profit is your revenue minus your expenses. And your expenses then will be your revenue minus your profit. Yeah, if I remember correctly. Am I right? Yes. So then they give us the revenue, so that's 840,000 minus 300,000. And that gives you 540,000. Just want to double check that I did that right. So profit is revenue minus expenses. Yeah, so expenses plus profit. Yeah, expenses plus profit is your revenue. Yeah, so expenses, revenue minus profit, yes. All right. So that's just once again, you change your formula, or if you really want to, you can just fill in the information they give you in your original formula, unless they want you to change the subject first. All right. And then it's, practice exercise 7i and self-assessment activity 7. That's a nice one. And you will see on question 7.17, remember what I told you about the decimals. Don't forget that rule over there. Okay. So, no, that's cool. Then for next time we will be doing learning module 8, using interest rates in business. And that's that's actually very nice, a lot of fun and very easy. It's also, once again, a bunch of formulas that you will need to learn, but hopefully not too difficult. All right. So thank you very much, guys, and I look forward to the next lesson, and keep studying, and I'll hear from you in the emails. Cheers, guys.